This is Lil Anthony. I named him after Big Anthony from Stregonona because they have the same hair. But now it just sounds like he could be a failed SoundCloud rapper. Webkinz is a really interesting example of what happens when you let kids have a world all to themselves, except everything is built and governed by adults, so it's structured around simulating capitalism, but in a less depressing way. I'm so fascinated by Webkinz, I could talk about it for hours, but I'll talk about it for a moderate amount of time, and I'm gonna sculpt my noodle head dog in the meantime. I'm not great at sculpting animals, but I figure since he's a much more simplified version of an animal, that maybe this won't be so bad. In 2005, the company Gans released Webkinz, a toy that wasn't only a plush but also a virtual pet. They first launched with 8 original Webkinz, and now there are over 1,000 options to choose from, some of which age better than others. At some point they ran out of real animals, so they started making stuff up. Their most iconic probably being Googles, which I think are supposed to be a platypus duck with no arms. Webkinz came in 2 sizes. There were the regular ones, and then there were Lilkinz, which looked exactly the same, but slightly smaller. I remember the first time I saw Lilkinz, it was at Justice, and they had a whole bin of Lilkinz Huskies, and I was begging my mom to let me have one. She said no, but then I pestered her all week and she bought it for me. She wasn't very happy, but I was. But Webkinz didn't just sell plushies. You could also get a million different accessories for both you and your pets. They sold clothes, jewelry, mouse pads, perfume. I had a green and pink carrier purse that I would put my chihuahua in, and I felt like such a baddie walking around the mall with this thing. But there's a whole other world, a digital world, where Webkinz could do so much more than just sit in a purse. Each of these pets came with their own secret code. With this secret code, you were granted access into Webkinz World, where you could adopt the same pet virtually, egregiously misspell its name, and watch it come to life. All while the website slowed down your parents' computer. Through this initial entry, you were introduced to the hosts, which players frequently interact with through various activities. Some of the most prominent being Miss Birdie, who you meet while adopting, Dr. Quack, who ran a clinic, and Miss Cowline, superintendent of the Kinsville Academy. Webkinz World paralleled real life and in many ways taught kids about responsibilities. You had to take care of your Webkinz to keep them healthy and happy by feeding them, bathing them, and keeping them entertained. If you neglected them, such as by not putting them to sleep before you logged out, then they would get sick and you would have to take them to Dr. Quack, who would prescribe medication that you would have to buy in order to make your Webkinz healthy again. And you could pay for this medicine using Webkinz World's own currency, Kinz Cash. Like many games I played in the early 2000s, Webkinz World taught me all about capitalism and the importance of money. Your Webkinz and home are customizable. You can dress your pets, expand your house, and decorate your rooms with all sorts of things from the W shop. But to do that, you need Kinz Cash. Now, there are several ways to make money. Some are more realistic, such as through the employment office, where you could get jobs painting fences, babysitting, and assisting the hosts, and others that were less rooted in reality, like playing games at the arcade and completing daily tasks like spinning the wheel of WoW and taking your chance at the wishing well, which had to be replaced by Wishing Well 2 pretty early on because the first one resembled gambling a little too much. The arcade itself had several games. This is where I spent most of my time on Webkinz World. My favorite game was Cash Cow 2. I was concerningly addicted, and that is how I made most of my money. I was too busy getting milk to ever come home to my Webkinz, but I would buy their affection with their favorite foods and all the newest toys. Child labor isn't legal anymore, according to the law. So Webkinz World gave it to us virtually because the children yearn for the mines. I was in the gem mines day in and day out trying to get that crown of wonder. I never did, but it's okay. It's fine. I'm not bitter. It's okay. I'm over it. It's not like nearly all my friends had one and I was the last one left. Speaking of friends, there was a big social aspect to Webkinz World. You could message friends, send mail, go to parties, and even compete against others down at the Webkinz Stadium. The beauty pageant was always rigged, and the ugliest outfits won, but anyways, they'd say you do better in competitions if you train your pets at the Kinsville Academy. At the academy, you could learn and practice several skills. I was not a big fan of the Kinsville Academy. I did okay at pancake flipping, but the painting class was impossible and I hated it. I also just didn't like the Kinsville Academy all too much because it felt too school-like. They'd literally give you a report card. I already had to go to school every single day for 7 hours, and I didn't want to come back home and still be graded, so I avoided this place as much as possible. One aspect I did love about Webkinz though was the media inside of the game. The TVs could play a couple of shows, literally a couple, it only played 2. My favorite was The Secret Chef, hosted by Webkinz celebrity chef, Chef Gazpacho. If you followed his recipes correctly, you could recreate his same dishes in your own Webkinz home. If you messed it up, you'd get gack, which would make your Webkinz sick. But if you did it right, you'd get the same dish you saw on your TV. One dish. Even though you had to spend money on 3 separate foods to make it. It wasn't really worth it, to be honest, when you think about it. Especially because you would have to buy the correct kitchen appliance to make said dish. If you used the wrong one, you'd get something that your Webkinz don't want to eat. My favorite form of media in Webkinz World was Music Stars, which was a page dedicated to music videos. Every month, Webkinz chooses a pet to be Pet of the Month. And for a little under 3 years, Webkinz would make a music video every month dedicated to whichever Webkinz was the current Pet of the Month. Some of these videos weren't great, to be honest, but the ones that were good, I would listen to all day, every day. I was obsessed with Hug a Pug for a little too long, and I may or may not have constantly forced my siblings to do the dance with me. The really interesting thing about Webkinz is that if you view the 2 parts separately, neither was anything all that different than what was already available, but by bridging the gap between physical toys and an online experience, the company was able to provide a unique product and stand out amongst competition. At the time, other popular MMOs like Club Penguin, Poptropica, and Neopets were all free to join. Most of these sites weren't entirely free. You could pay to get special benefits, but you could play and have a really good time without ever spending a dime. That rhymed. And it's wild to imagine having to pay to be allowed entry into any of these sites, but that's what Webkinz did. Webkinz World was exclusive, and the only way to get in was to buy a toy, which was a risky decision for the company to make, especially because they were a new brand. But this turned out to be the right move, and the exclusivity seemed to drive sales rather than deter them. But even though the website itself was fun, it definitely wasn't the sole reason that kids wanted Webkinz. What made this business model so effective was that the plush pets were more than just a ticket into a secret club. Structurally, you could tell that the company was actually trying to make a decent product. They were easy to move around and play with, and soft and cuddly enough to sleep with. They weren't super stiff like a lot of merch is. These toys were made to be played with, and they had real value as standalone products, just like other stuffed animals. Granted, they were really pricey stuffed animals, but stuffed animals nonetheless. Speaking of which, Webkinz weren't the cheapest toys. Having one was definitely a privilege, but kids wanted as many as possible, and some kids had a ton. As a kid, having a bunch of Webkinz was the ultimate symbol of wealth. Well, maybe not the ultimate, but having piles of Webkinz was a big deal. It had every other kid in awe, and it was a guaranteed way to get respect on the playground. But even the non-gluttonous children who owned a moderate amount of Webkinz, to even those kids, Webkinz was much more than a toy and a game. It was a lifestyle, and I'm so serious when I say that. Webkinz was entertaining in so many different ways that it occupied every aspect of our lives and ended up creating an overlap between online and real life. Every minute of my life was dedicated to Webkinz. I would take them to school, and we would play with them during recess, and anytime they gave us free computer time at school, we would play on Webkinz World. I would come home, Webkinz. I'd sleep with my Webkinz. I'd go on YouTube and watch videos of Webkinz. There were Webkinz content creators who would make videos of their collection and do Webkinz vlogs and even skits.
Yay! We saved 1 penny! Yay! Good for your college!
My ultimate favorite was a creator named Strawberry516. Her videos were so well made and funny. Webkinz Go to the Doctor was on repeat in my household. I still quote lines from that to this day. It's ingrained in my head.
Would you like a Band-Aid?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're all out.
What? The Band-Aid's right there!
Those are my good ones. I'm not gonna waste them on you.
Give it to me.
Don't you touch my stuff. Don't you touch my stuff, kid.
It's painful, Quackers. Painful.
I really don't care.
I have the worst memory until it comes to stuff like this. All these years I've lived, and yet the only information my brain has retained is from media I consumed as a child. Even now, those videos still genuinely make me laugh. She ended up deleting her channel, and only a few of her videos have been reposted, which genuinely makes me sad. But Strawberry516 wasn't the only channel. There were several Webkinz YouTubers, or Kinztubers, if you will, who were pretty big in the community, and by simply existing, they influenced what Webkinz we wanted to buy, how we would play with our Webkinz. I mean, even the way they would hold the Webkinz and make them move so it looked like they were talking. Everyone started moving Webkinz in that same way. I even remember trying to record my own Webkinz videos because I loved the ones that I would watch on YouTube so much. And there was just this constant cycle of influence, a feedback loop between online and real life. Online would affect how we play with the toy, and people would film themselves playing with said toy, post it online, and I at home would be influenced. I'm lost. And unsure if I'm conveying this correctly, but I think you know where I'm going with this. There was this blurred line between Webkinz in real life and Webkinz online. And now that I say this out loud, it sounds kind of unhealthy, but it was a really good time. Oh, and to add to that, for a really short period of time, Webkinz would have real life events. I'll never forget, during Webkinz peak popularity, they would have what they called Webkinz Day Extravaganza. It was usually held at a mall, and so the participating stores in that mall would have Webkinz themed activities like the Jelly Bean Challenge and a real-life version of the Wheel of Wow. Through these activities, you could win free Webkinz and accessories. I remember I ended up winning a little figurine from spinning the Wheel of Wow, which I thought was so cool because I spun the Wheel of Wow every single day virtually, and I was getting to physically spin one in real life. I was so excited. And I grew up in a small, boring place where nothing interesting ever happened, so this was a really big deal to me. And while I have so many happy memories due to this online-offline Webkinz loop, I also have some odd memories, some very scary to me at the time, because when something is as popular as Webkinz was, there's bound to be conspiracy theories, and when the primary demographic is children, those theories might be taken very seriously. Webkinz had its fair share of rumors, mostly spread through elementary schools by word of mouth. Some of these were relatively harmless. I remember a bunch of kids believing that Miss Birdie and Dr. Quack were secretly together and in love. Others thought that they were not together, but actually the same person, and that Miss Birdie was actually Dr. Quack in disguise. It didn't help that Webkinz used the same voice actor for both characters. This was all nothing compared to the playground gossip that had me clutching my Webkinz in fear. One of the biggest rumors at the time was that of the Webkinz killer. Yes, Webkinz had its own serial killer, or so people thought it did. It was said that your Webkinz could be targeted and killed, and kids were swearing up and down that it happened to their pets. There were a couple different versions of this story. One was that it would happen in your home and that the lights would suddenly go out, and that's the last time you would see your Webkinz alive. Another was that a colored box would appear in your Webkinz room, and if you opened it, something really bad would happen. Some people pin this on Neopets. The version of this rumor that I heard was that this killer was actually Dr. Quack. Someone had also edited a photo to depict him as evil, and again, to children, this image was extremely believable. There were several rumors about how he would choose his victims. One was that if you clicked on the eye chart a certain number of times, he would snap and hurt your Webkinz. I remember also hearing that the medicine he would give out was actually poisoned. I was very wary of Dr. Quack after this. At one point, one of my Webkinz got sick and I had no choice but to take them to the clinic. My classmates were in my ear, terrified that he was gonna kill my Webkinz. And I remember being super careful not to accidentally click on the eye chart. And then of course, Dr. Quack prescribed some medicine, which I didn't want to buy because I was fully convinced it would kill my pet. Eventually, after my suffering Webkinz didn't magically heal on their own, I held my breath and gave them the medication, and they didn't die. So actually, the rumor of the Webkinz killer got so out of hand that the company had to step in and address it. But I don't think the possibility of Webkinz dying was enough to stop anyone from playing the game anyway. It honestly may have scared us into being on Webkinz World for longer so that we could watch over our Webkinz and make sure no one hurts them. After that, there weren't many rumors surrounding Webkinz. It was just happy, wholesome fun. But Webkinz was a bit of a fad. They got really popular really quick. Interestingly enough, when Webkinz launched, the company didn't advertise at all. They didn't have commercials or anything like that. Instead, they relied on word of mouth marketing, and that's how I found out about them. One by one, kids at my school started showing up with Webkinz, and they would talk about how they were so much better than a regular stuffed animal, and I felt so much FOMO that I went home and was like, I need a Webkinz now. But like all trends, excitement eventually dies down. The company peaked in popularity around 2008 to 2009, and then users started to decline. Another rhyme. Their audience was growing up and finding interest in other things, or just growing bored and looking for cooler things to play with, like shaped rubber bands, for example. Following this drop-off in active users, the company decided to make several changes. The most notable being that you no longer have to purchase a Webkinz to join Webkinz World. Now you are able to open an account completely for free, and Webkinz will provide you with one virtual pet of your choosing. Along with making the site free, Webkinz introduced a new tier system, including free, full, and deluxe members. Free accounts are those playing for free. Whenever you purchase a Webkinz, either plush or a virtual one, your account would be promoted to a full membership for 1 year. If you didn't redeem a new Webkinz after that year, you would be demoted to a free account. And deluxe is a monthly subscription, so now a lot of features that were previously available to all users are only accessible to members of a certain tier, and those with deluxe memberships are the only ones able to use everything on the site. I actually really liked when Webkinz became free to join so that more people can play. I just don't know if the new membership model works that well for Webkinz World. I think it would have been fine if they started that way, but a significant portion of players are original users who remember having access to every part of the site, and now they're being told they have to pay for things that were previously free, which isn't fun. But that wasn't the only big change for original players. Webkinz also revamped the hosts. They're all on Ozempic now. Miss Birdie got a facelift, Artie got veneers. The rumor about Dr. Quack and Miss Birdie being together actually turned out to be true. Also, Webkinz can't get sick anymore because Dr. Quack and scientist Goober found a way to cure every pet of all illnesses. Because Dr. Quack's services weren't needed anymore, he announced that he would be retiring. I was really sad to hear this because he was my favorite host. I still don't fully understand why they made this decision. I always assumed that maybe the Webkinz killer rumor had tarnished his image, but it couldn't have damaged his reputation that much because after closing his clinic, he ran for mayor and won. But none of the changes they made positively impacted consumption enough, and both the physical and digital sides of the toy were nowhere near as successful as they used to be. Gans ended up discontinuing original Webkinz plush toys, and after that they announced that Webkinz World would be leaving browsers. The website ran on Flash Player, which Adobe shut down in late 2020. Following that, the only way to play the game was through the app. The desktop application is basically the same as the browser version, with some exceptions. The TVs can't play shows anymore, though they do show images on the screen. The TVs in the clubhouse actually do play shows, but the image is super small and some things are cut off, so it isn't as easy to view. Gardening isn't what it used to be either. You used to be able to tend to your plants and water and rake them and stuff. If you didn't take care of your plants every single day, they would die. Now the plants just grow on their own and you don't need to do anything. But that one might have been a deliberate change. I wasn't able to keep any of my plants alive. The mobile app, on the other hand, is heavily lacking. Many features are completely missing, like the curio shop and many of the arcade games, but you can still take care of your pets and dress them and stuff. And then Webkinz decided to try something different, so they released Webkinz Next, which has its own application separate from the original. And now there are new plush pets that can be redeemed on both Webkinz Next and Classic. They kinda just look like Beanie Boos. I guess this was their attempt at making the company modern and relevant again, while trying to reach a new generation of children since their original audience aren't little kids anymore. And by creating this entirely new site, they can move past the Flash Player issue. The premise of Webkinz Next is similar to that of Webkinz Classic. The most notable difference is the animation. It's not something I love personally. Other than that, it generally is the same concept. I'm pretty sure, I don't know, I actually didn't do that much research because these pets give me the creeps. Like everyone else, I think my distaste for Webkinz Next isn't actually about Next, but more so because it's not the original. There's been this resurgence of interest in games that were popular in the early 2000s. Kids who grew up during that era have been craving nostalgia. Maybe it's a desperate attempt at reliving our childhoods before we had to worry about the house that we'll never be able to buy. Because more people are playing Webkinz again, the company has been trying to make Webkinz World available on browsers just like it used to be. In late 2025, Webkinz World officially returned to browsers as an early access sort of thing. So as of right now, the site doesn't fully function properly, but again, the desktop app is almost just like the original site. I've been using it to play on my sister's account because I found out that mine has been deleted. Apparently 7 years of inactivity is too long. It's okay, I emailed them very nicely and they responded. I have hope.
Boom shakalaka! Yes, God! Yes, God! Yes, God!
Anyways, here's my finished sculpture. I made him a crown of wonder. Okay, goodbye.